It's so funny to me when people talk about racism in Australia. I grew up in Pakistan, and in my early teens, I moved to Australia. And the only bullying that I experienced was from other immigrants. Australians actually were the most accepting of me. I felt the most comfortable around them.
Hey, so what you've just seen there is a TikTok which is going absolutely viral right now with thousands of views a day. That was with Zara Batul. Now, she's a life coach and a nutritionist, someone who's also my partner that I'm bringing onto the show today so that we can dive deep into her perspective and views. As a first generation immigrant into the country, her viewpoints are very important right now, especially with all the large scale protests going across the country. So let's get into it. Hey, Zara. So welcome to the show. It's so wonderful to have you on. Your TikTok is absolutely blowing up, and we wanted to just get to know a little bit more about you and where you're coming from. Tell us a little bit, like you came from Pakistan originally. What was that like coming to Australia for the first time?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show, Ryan. As we've been together for almost 10 years now, I really appreciate our relationship and all the stimulating conversations that we have. I did arrive in Australia at the age of 13 as an immigrant from Pakistan. And due to my unique situation, I had to give up the citizenship of Pakistan to become a citizen of Australia. And I went through a lot of identity shifting and letting go of old patterns and developing new ones, assimilating, culture shock, everything. It wasn't easy, but the main thing that I was mentioning in the TikTok, the reason why it's blowing up is when I started high school in Australia. I did experience bullying, just like many people experience bullying during high school. But when it comes to racism and what I've heard about Australia being a racist country, this has not been my experience. In fact, the racism that I did experience or the bullying that I did experience came from other immigrants. And this is the truth that I'm sharing. And for some reason, a lot of Australians are feeling like they relate to my message and it's not being heard in public. So that's why I've noticed it's just blown up a lot. I want to be able to recognize all the voices, all the perspectives without the emotional reactions, and actually zoom out and assimilate and actually see what is Australia saying, who is Australia, what is our national identity, and can we feel proud of being Australian?
Mm. Well, if you listen to our politicians and our mainstream media, they'll tell you that Australia is generally a racist country, that we're bigoted, we're homophobic, we're anti-immigrant, and that anyone who is approaching those protest rallies, who is speaking up for their country and saying, no, we want to preserve our culture as it is, they're basically labeled as evil and that their opinions be dismissed. And it really does open up the doorway for first wave immigrants like yourself who have experienced the cultural shock, the moving from one country to another, to really see that this is it's a full perspective. So thank you so much for raising that voice, your concern to address this issue so brilliantly.
Thank
Um,
you. I actually went to a quite multicultural high school, and I know a lot of Australians identify with the multiculturalism as being part of the national identity of Australia. But I'm here to question and talk about the difference between multiculturalism and social cohesion. And I feel like there's a discussion that needs to happen there. And that's something that I don't hear being talked about. And I feel like people are just assuming that multiculturalism equals social cohesion. And what we're seeing now is not that. And why is it that we're not seeing that? This is the discussion I think is important to have.
Absolutely. I think Charlie Kirk actually said it very well recently, where he says that there's a constant message that diversity is our strength, but no one's saying that unity is our strength. And if we do break down the social breakdown of we're all humans, and if we're relying deeply on each other, that can form, and it's a mentality of unity where we are actually working together. And sure, okay, there are factors that come into play when it comes to multiculturalism. There are absolutely diverse ideas, And some of those can be fantastic, but we really need to be working together as a complete collective in order to make this country work, to have a solid identity.
Absolutely. And to add on to what you mentioned about unity, and being dependent on each other for our survival. This is actually something that I was recently watching a deep sea documentary, and it was so fascinating to me because what I saw is that every single species was depending on another because there was such scarce resources that their survival meant the survival of the other species. And when you're so deeply connected to your environment, and when you recognize that your survival depends on the survival of the ones around you, then you start appreciating and respecting what you have. Now, the unity is not denying the multiculturalism, but it has the cohesion that right now we're not seeing. We're seeing a lot of division, and I want to bring people to more of a cohesive society.
Yeah, very well said. Absolutely. Um, However, we can't also deny that multiculturalism in itself is destructive to the culture of the natives, the natural inhabitants of the land. And so everything must have a form of balance. What we need to do is we need to find a common voice. Tap more into that. What happened to the old Australia of give everyone a fair go? You know, that's definitely something that helped define our nation. We've always been good people. We've always given people a chance, and maybe while we can move forward and let people speak their voice and let the government actually hear what people have to say rather than locking up or suppressing people.
Listen, I'm all for giving people a fair go and that being part of our national identity. But at the same time, recognize what that effect has on the environment. For example, there's a reason why people want to come to Australia. They want to enjoy a certain lifestyle, they want to enjoy a certain environment. And to be able to preserve that and make sure that that people who are coming to Australia for these kinds of opportunities, we keep these opportunities, we preserve it for them and we maintain it, there has to be some rules that need to be kept in place, especially if those rules are being broken by people within Australia. Like if people within Australia, maybe they're immigrants, maybe they're coming from as a refugee, maybe they're coming from a really violent family, for example, and they might be really traumatized. And you know how trauma just includes a cycle of trauma. What we need to make sure is that we recognize that Australia has these values of accepting people. We need to preserve the exact culture that we're trying to protect at the same time. If people are coming to Australia, we need to respect the fact that they want to come here for a specific quality of life. And if we're not preserving that quality of life, we're not only ruining it for the current immigrants, but also the future immigrants and for the current residents of Australia itself. You know, the
Oh,
Australian dream, for
sorry to,
example.
sorry to interrupt you, but talking about the Australian dream, I have a question. How would you feel about if the country suddenly became majority immigrant? How would you feel about Australia? Would you still want to be here, or would you be very pleased, or how would you feel?
Listen, I don't judge my environment based on whether you're an immigrant or you're not an immigrant. Um, I was accepted by Australia, by some Australians, and I was rejected and bullied by other Australians. I think we're only as good as how well we treat each other at the end of the day. And if you can't treat another human being and meet them with common humanity, I don't care if you're an immigrant, I don't care if you're a long-term resident, you're not extending me the compassion that we all deserve, not only to ourselves, but to other people. And this common humanity is the biggest message that I would like to share. Is the common humanity is something that we're not extending to every single one of us, even people who have differing ideas. Listen, we can attack ideas and disagree with ideas, but when we start attacking people based on the ideas that they're holding, that's when we're going a step too far. We're letting our emotions get in the way, and we're not having a proper discussion. These people are going to continue to feel unheard. They're going to continue to feel misunderstood. They're going to continue to get angry and more inflamed, and they're going to continue to go out and marching in the street until their voice gets heard.
Dara Batul, you're a treasure. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so there you go. That was my interview with Zara. What did you think? What are your thoughts on her perspectives? Let me know down below in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you all next time.